Hey, good morning, world. It's Allie with The Right Place, Right Time, award-winning author, international book coach, and ghostwriter, and I am here for today's Memoir Minute, where you can learn about writing memoir 1 minute at a time. Today, we're talking about fear. Why? Because in the last couple of weeks, as I've dug into some memoir writing groups across some social media platforms, I've noticed that some of the things that are tripping people up in the early stages of drafting their memoir are fear. Now, truthfully, the fears that they have are very similar to any other writer in any other genre, right? We have the fear of what we say not sounding right. We have the fear of not being able to hold our audience's attention. We have a fear of not knowing what we're doing, right? So there's a lot of very similar fears that really cross the genre divide, if you will. But memoirists have a few additional fears that are kind of unique to writing memoir, right? Because memoir is based on your life. So people tend to fear, hurting other people's feelings or pissing other people off if they're writing about them in their book. They fear being sued by those people who might find fault with what it is that they've said. And then, of course, they have the fear of like, look, I've felt pretty stable, pretty grounded for a while since these events, or since therapy. I'm really worried about trudging up the past, triggering myself, falling into a deep, dark hole. I've been there before. I don't really want to go back there, even though I'm compelled to tell my story. Well, here's the thing. Of those three things, pissing people off, the fear of being sued, the fear of being emotionally triggered, two of those are really putting the cart before the horse. And the third of those, all right, really can't be helped. Okay. So which is it? Well, first of all, when you're writing memoir, you have to go into the past. That's just the name of the game. That's the genre. You are being reflective, introspective about something that you've been through before. So you've got to go there. Like you have to go back to that hard time and get it onto the page. There are ways to cope and deal with that. Going back to therapy, having self-care. I've talked about some of these things in other memoir minutes. So that one you're not going to really be able to avoid. You're going to have to go face the dark stuff. Now, whether or not it triggers you or sends you into a dark hole is not a guarantee. It's a possibility, but you might be surprised. Maybe you actually will feel more empowered by rewriting your narrative, and maybe some of these things won't happen. I don't know, but there is no debate about whether or not you're going to have to face the past to some extent in order to write about it on the page. The two that you're putting the cart before the horse have to do with being worried about pissing people off or hurting their feelings, or the fear of being sued. And the reason that you're putting those fears too far ahead of anything else is that you haven't written anything yet. This book is way far away from being published and being read by anybody other than you. So while you are not writing the book because you're all worried about the legalities or other people's viewership and censorship, you're not actually getting a book done. You're not actually writing the thing that you feel called to write because you're letting fear stop you from getting anything on to the blank page. So drafting is the time to write for you and be for your eyes only. Okay. This first draft, these early stages, nobody else is looking at it except for you and who you choose to share it with. So write what needs to be said, write it raw, write it angry, write it bitter, write it however you need to write it to get it out. Be honest, be transparent, fully disclose whatever it is that you need to say, because right now in these early stages, that first draft, it's for you, man. Like you are doing it for you. All right. You will have chances to fix it, to revise it, to polish it, to edit it, to do all of the things that you can then pay attention to make sure that you don't have to worry about people being pissed off or hurting their feelings. Or maybe by then you won't even care, right? Because you will have said what you need to say. You will also have the chance, right, during those revisions and editing and revising and all of those things, to look for the places where you might have crossed the line into saying some things that might be concerning from a legal perspective, right? And you definitely have the time before it's published to consult with an attorney or a lawyer. So none of these things are really things to be holding you back from putting words down on the page right now, unless you let them. But remember, you can't revise, edit, polish, or change anything that doesn't actually exist, right? So words have to go down onto the page. So I'm not saying don't be afraid. I'm saying shelve those fears for the time being while you're working through the draft that is for you and all the things that you need to say. And then you'll tackle those problems when it's time to tackle them. But right now, in these early stages, in these early drafts, it ain't time. Now is time just to write, let your soul free, let the words fly, and get a draft done. All right. And if you want to talk more about this and writing your story and tackling these fears or doubts or overwhelm, then please join me for a story stroll. DM me. Let's talk for 20 minutes. Let's get you onto your path. Let's get you the next best step that you can take to make this happen and stop giving it lip service. All right. So I hope to hear from you. I hope we'll be strolling soon. And then in the meantime, I'll be back next week with another memoir minute.